My special guest for the next 2 weeks is here to offer some much needed wisdom and effective strategies for navigating the rejection we sometimes face or dish out to others. And here, before the holidays begin, is a great time to think about this topic, right? As believers, our responses must be based on God's word and God's character. So listen in as we discuss with humor and biblical truth Reframing Rejection, Part 1. You're listening to episode 19 of the Unperfect Podcast, a place where we talk frankly about the tension we often feel living out abundant lives in the now and the not yet. I'm your host, Shelly Sneed, and if you're feeling less than perfect, congrats, you are officially human, and you're not alone. Hope and probably some humor are coming up. So I am sitting here today with Jessica Van Roekel. She is from rural Iowa, where she and her husband of 25 years raised their 2 adult daughters and are still raising a son and a daughter in high school. And she's an author and a speaker and a worship leader. So she basically does it all. And I love this. I got this off your website, and it's so true. She loves connecting with others, rich coffee, and whimsical earrings. So thank you so much for being on the Unperfect Podcast, Jessica.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm excited to talk with you and your listeners about today's topic.
Awesome. So I do like to kind of give my unprofessional how I met the guest that I have today. And I met Jessica about 6 months ago, which is crazy because I feel like I've known you a lot longer than that. But before we even met in person, we were at a Zoom event for writers and speakers, and we ended up in the same small group prayer time at the end, which is kind of all a blur to me. But all I remember is getting an email from you a couple of months later saying, "Hey, I'm coming to Asheville for this conference we were both going to." So I offered to pick you up at the airport, virtually knowing nothing about you. So there you go. I'm an extrovert. I'm okay with that. And it was the rest, they say, is history. We were friends from that first hug at our sweet little Asheville airport. So I'm just excited that you're here with us. And I also bought your book this summer, and it is so, so good. We'll be talking a lot about some of the good stuff that's in it. But I just want to say, I always judge a book's poignancy by how many quotes I have highlighted. And yours is very colorful, my dear. There are highlights all throughout the book. So I've really gotten a lot from it, reading your book. But let's dive right in and talk a little bit about our topic today, which is rejection. And I want to say, since you're the expert on rejection, but that sounds kind of like an insult. Like, I'm here today with our resident rejectee.
Well, I've often felt that way because I've experienced it so much in my life, but I don't know that I want to be known by that.
That is
but I hope I'm known for hope and healing.
Yeah. And definitely that will be the case. So why don't you just start with telling us about the different types of rejection?
Yeah. So when I started really coming awake to the effects that I was allowing rejection to have in my life, and I started really exploring it, I thought, well, what are the different types of rejection? Is it, mother-daughter, husband-wife, friend to friend, church attendee? And yes, but as I dug deeper into rejection, I really discovered there was actually just 4 different categories that most rejections fit into. And so the first one I call perceived rejection. And I define this as kind of like walking into a room and assuming you're already rejected before you've even spoken a word or met anybody. It's a very self-protective mode. And I think I wrote in my book, it's like walking into a room and someone glances your way and they have like a frown on their face.
Right.
And I have interpreted that as, oh my goodness, they don't like me. They've rejected me. But they could be thinking about cleaning out a smelly drain that they had to deal with this morning. And I have a house full of girls with long curly hair, and cleaning out the drain is something I do regularly, and it makes me wrinkle my nose and I get this look on my face. And sometimes it's as as simple as that, because we don't really know what someone else is thinking. We can just interpret what they're saying on their face without any words at all.
Right.
And my experiences with rejection just kind of led me to assume I was already rejected without giving someone a chance to get to know me, without
Right.
giving them a chance. And so that's that perceived rejection. The second rejection is I call actual rejection. This is what happens when you apply for a position and you get turned down or someone else gets chosen. It could be you entered in a contest and someone else won the prize, or you extended a hand of friendship to someone new in town and they didn't really reciprocate. Those are actual rejections. Those are the no's that we encounter in our life. Um, I feel like that, too many of that can impact our resiliency. Just like with perceived, that sets us up as being very defensive and self protective. Whereas actual rejection, when we come across so many no's, like no after no after no, it really impacts our resiliency and our grit. And then the third type of rejection is unintentional rejection. Now, this is just misunderstanding, whether someone's motives or actions or words. For example, there's something I was really passionate about, and I just got on fire and I stood on a soapbox, and my friend felt completely different, but she misinterpreted my words as rejection. And I have felt that way too, where someone has said something to me, whether they were having a bad day and they didn't respond with their usual friendly gestures, and I've misinterpreted that as rejection. And it was really unintentional on my part and the other person's part. So it's almost like miscommunication there
Sure.
leads to that unintentional rejection. And then the fourth kind of rejection is intentional rejection. And this is the kind of rejection that creates those really jagged wounds in our hearts and our lives because it's really motivated by ill will or even malice. A person sets out to reject you. It's that letter you get or email that says, "Hey, I don't want you in my life anymore." Boom, done. Or it's possibly the great disagreement that happens that there can be no more reconciliation. Or it's the kind of situation where someone very obviously and deliberately is trying to push you out of a circle of friends, or they're spreading lies and rumors about you. That intentional rejection is really motivated by malice.
Sure. Yeah. And as you were talking about each one, like I can think of an example of almost every one in my own life. So that's so interesting. The perceived rejection, I have to tell this story because I think it's kind of funny, and hopefully my mother-in-law will forgive me for sharing it on the podcast. But you have to know her too. She's the sweetest person you'll ever meet in your life. She loves everyone. Like if she doesn't like you, you have issues because she loves everyone. But I recently asked her, and we were in a big group of people, so we couldn't really have a conversation. But I recently she said something like, "I listened to your podcast," and I said, "Oh, what do you think?" And her response was, "It was very Shelley." Now, I know now that she listens to the podcast all the time. So I know she likes it. She recommends it to other people. But what did I do? I immediately thought, oh, Shelley is unorganized. She talks too much, whatever. That's what she meant. She meant, oh gosh, it sounds just like you're crazy, unorganized self-talking. But I knew that, thankfully I know her well enough. But if that had been someone I don't know, or whatever, I can totally see how that perceived rejection would just be a huge hit. So we know the different types. To help us walk through how we reframe our perspective when we experience each type of this rejection that you've described.
Oh, yes. Because what's the point of having knowledge if we can't
Right.
apply it to our life, right?
Yeah. I don't want to just be able to
So
walk around and go, oh,
uh-uh.
that was actual rejection.
I know, I get that. So with perceived, I think the thing that really just opened my eyes to what I was doing is I was really accusing someone of hurting me before they had actually ever done anything.
Oh, yeah.
And there's some verses in Proverbs. Proverbs chapter 3, towards the end of the chapter, talks about how, we shouldn't accuse someone of
Mm,
harming us before they've ever really done anything. And I read that and I thought, wow, I number one, I think I'm thinking about myself way more than I realize. And so to really reframe this perceived rejection is to really think about ourselves less and give people the benefit of the doubt. To remember that we are accepted and approved by God, and to realize that we can extend that same acceptance and approval to that other person that we're assuming has rejected us. Because isn't perceived rejection rejecting the other person in our own desire to protect ourselves?
wow. Absolutely. I love that. And that really flips the script, because we think of
Mhm.
rejection as someone has hurt me. And basically what you're saying is that's kind of selfish. Like, we're being kind of selfish in that kind of
Yeah.
rejection because we're just thinking about ourselves. I love that.
Also with perceived rejection is the fact that we have gifts that we can offer. And when we have a right view of ourselves in God's eyes, we're kind of denying others the opportunity to to see the good in us that God sees in
Mm.
us. That was just a
Oh,
new thought
yeah.
that I had.
Yes, I
So,
love it. That's beautiful.
all right.
So, how about actual rejection? Because that's not very
Okay.
fun either.
It's really not. I mean, we have these hopes and dreams, and we can have actual rejection from the people in our life, but what about when God says no to a dream
Mm,
or a desire?
yes.
That is really, really hard. And I think the way to reframe this is to remember that our days and our times are in God's hands and that we can trust Him with our present and future hopes and dreams. So to reframe actual rejection is really an opportunity to trust God more,
Mm,
to to understand that His heart for us is really good, and that when we experience no from Him, it doesn't mean that He doesn't love us or that we don't have His favor. It means that He probably is saving something for us or saving us from something.
yes. I think of parenting, like, when I tell my child no, I'm trying to protect them from
Mhm,
something. I'm not
mhm.
rejecting them. I have
Yeah.
something better, or I know what can be better for them. So yeah, it kind of goes back to his whole character.
It does go back to his whole character. And then when we have rejection in our day to day lives, that it's just really about trusting our days with his
Mm,
timing and in his hand. And
yeah.
to really just say, God, I'm going to trust you. I don't understand why this job or this position that I really desire, that I really felt like you called me to apply for, and then I
Right.
didn't get it. I don't understand, but Lord, I'm going to lean not on my own understanding, but I'm going to acknowledge you and I'm going to trust your heart for me. And so I just am going to let it go, but I'm going to hang on to you.
Oh, that is beautiful. And a couple of weeks ago, I interviewed another author on the podcast, and we talked about that. Like, when God calls you to do something, but then it doesn't seem very productive. Sometimes He calls us to things potentially. And I think in the book you mentioned this several times, that rejection is a tool that He can use in our lives.
Yes.
So not to just see it
Yes.
as I did something wrong, He's out to
Hmm.
get me. So I love that.
Yeah,
All right, take us
that's
through
great.
the next one.
Okay.
Unintentional.
Unintentional. I think of this. I think of refusing to take up an offense by making ourselves offense proof. which can be really challenging, but it really means that I don't need to be so sensitive and take everything to
Mm,
heart, that I don't need to interpret everything through my foggy lens of all of my issues with perfectionism and control and rejection. Because we interpret the things that come at us through that lens, but really put ourselves, okay, what's that person's character? Did they really
oh,
mean to
that's
hurt
good.
me? Or am I just
Right.
interpreting this wrong? Um, it's a matter of communication is so much more than just the words that we say, but it's also the heart behind it. And if I'm thinking of an unintentional rejection that happens between two friends, often it's just a misunderstanding or misinterpretation. And if their heart is for me, then maybe they just had a bad day. Maybe they woke up on the wrong side of the bed. Maybe they only slept 2 hours, or maybe they're really frustrated with their child or their spouse. And instead of really addressing what's going on with them, they spoke harshly or they spoke flippantly. So it's really, I love this verse from Philippians where it says, do nothing out of vain conceit, rather in humility value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of others. And I think in order to reframe this unintentional rejection, I think if we can follow that verse, it will help us reframe those misunderstandings and hurt feelings.
Absolutely. And I was thinking as you were talking, I think this happens in my marriage a lot. And I
Mm-hmm.
love how you were talking about how to reframe it, because my husband can say something and, and it's unintentional, but my insecurity can take that as, oh, he doesn't think I'm good enough, or whatever my
Yeah.
insecurity decides to run with. But I love what you were saying.
Yeah.
Like, I know my husband's heart for me. He adores me. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
let me just get back to what did he actually say. And like you said, am I being oversensitive? I love that. Or even the humility it takes to do what you're suggesting, like in a friendship. I just had this thought come to mind. Like, I think a lot of us have probably experienced where you invite someone to do stuff a lot and you're really close friends and you notice they don't always initiate the
Mm-hmm.
inviting or the whatever. I just had this happen
Yeah.
recently, but just to stop and go, how can I serve this person? Like,
Mm-hmm.
let me quit making this about me. How can I serve this person?
Yeah.
It's not, I'm making this relationship about do I feel accepted, instead of how can I serve you in humility. So I love that.
Yeah. That's
Okay,
good. Really good.
we're on to the biggest, I don't know,
Oh,
the hardest one, maybe
I
intentional
think, yeah.
rejection.
Oh, I think intentional rejection is so painful. It is,
Sure.
ugh, it hurts. I mean, just flat out, it hurts. You feel betrayed. You feel um, wounded. You feel sabotaged. You feel a grief because you've lost something or someone. And oh, it's the process of forgiveness. And I say that and it sounds so trite, but when I say process, I really mean it's removing the other person's obligation to pay you back for what they did to you.
Mm, right.
And it so in that forgiveness process, it's remembering that Jesus suffered too. Jesus suffered
Mm,
rejection. And it's looking at that intentional rejection as an opportunity to identify more with Christ in his sufferings.
oh yes, that's beautiful. I think I forget, when it comes to the rejection part, I think I forget his humanity. Like,
Mm,
I know he was both God
hmm.
and man at the same time, fully God, fully man. But I just kind of had glossed over that fact that, he felt what we feel as rejection. That's
Yeah,
that's pretty powerful.
yeah. He did. And even God did, all the way back into the Garden of
Yeah.
Eden when Adam and Eve
Oh
rejected
yeah.
him.
Sure.
So, Yeah.
Absolutely. And I love you were talking about it feels so painful. Um, and our emotions can be good indicators. I know my pastor says all the
Hmm.
time, they're great indicators, but don't let them drive the car. Like we have to move
Exactly.
move past them. And I've got to read this quote. I don't even know if it's completely applies to what we're talking about in this moment because it's near the beginning of your book, but it is so powerful. And I've sent this out to a lot of people. It says, sometimes when we hobble because of brokenness, God needs to re-break a piece of our heart that has healed crookedly so that the broken piece can be reset in its proper place. I love
Mm.
that, but it's hard. And I've heard before,
Yeah.
heart work is hard work. We don't
Yeah.
like those feelings that come and that painful feelings, but again, just kind of seeing all this as a tool that God can use to reposition the brokenness and make it into to something beautiful. So I love that.
Oh, thank you. It's painful, but man, I love being made whole because it's painful walking
Exactly.
around life broken.
Yes, yes, yes. Which you don't want to stay stuck there for sure.
No,
Um,
for sure not.
okay, I love that. So I know that we have some people pleasers out there. So, what is some practical advice and encouragement you can give these listeners? Because I think a lot of times we live trying to get approval from others to avoid that rejection. So, what are some advice or some encouragement that you would give us in that area?
Oh, that is something that I tried to rejection proof myself by being
Right.
perfect.
Yes.
And so much so that like I would figure out like what someone else thought was really great, and then I would try and be that. Like if they thought that being super detailed was a really great quality, I would like try to be super detailed, but details give me a headache.
Right.
And
Right.
I always feel like I fail. But the thing to remember is that people pleasing doesn't eliminate rejection from our lives. That perfection doesn't work. And perfection is not possible here on earth. We will not be
Exactly.
perfect until we see Jesus face to face. And so I would just encourage someone to make a mistake.
Mm.
I am notorious. I like to have people over, but I'm notorious for forgetting drinks,
Yes.
napkins, something really vital until like the 5 minutes before they show up.
Exactly.
But I've learned to embrace rather than saying I failed or they're going to reject me or they're never going to want to come over and see again. I have learned to just laugh with it, and to release that need to be the perfect host and just say, I'm sorry the lemonade isn't as cold as I would like it because I completely forgot to make it until 10 minutes before you showed up.
Right.
And
Yep.
just laugh about it. Laugh about it.
And
Um,
doesn't that give other people space to be real? Like, I would love it if I
yes.
showed up to your house and you said that because I would go, okay, I'm not that, I'm not the only one.
Yes, yes. I promise you, if you showed up at my house, I would take you around to show you my junk drawers. I have a large kitchen. I have 7 junk drawers.
Yeah, we once had the leadership team from Ridgecrest over to our house for Christmas dinner, and I didn't realize it till half the people were there, and one of my friends whose spouse is on the leadership team came over and said, "Your mop bucket and your mop are still right in the middle of the living floor." So there they all were congregating in the mop. So I mean, what do you do? Like, you really do
What do you
have
do?
to laugh. You really do have to
You've got
laugh
to
and
laugh
accept
it off. So, practical advice, let it go, laugh it off. And the thing that, okay, so there's a phrase that practice makes perfect, but I think practice makes permanent.
that.
And because
That's good.
perfect is impossible to achieve, but
Sure.
if we can practice being okay with our imperfections, we're going to stop measuring our worth by whether we achieved our personal impossible standard of perfection. Because God doesn't call us to be perfect. He calls us to be loved, to walk in his ways, to allow him to mold and shape us. And frankly, there's a lot of imperfection on that journey. And it's okay. We can be comfortable with imperfection. Not excuse, but be comfortable.
I love that. And again, I'm going to read another quote from your book because it was one of my favorites. You said, "Perfection is a horrid boss. The standard moves ever higher, and soon we lose sight of what matters in the elusive chase for something that doesn't exist." And then here's what really stuck out to me, because I've never considered myself a perfectionist. Like, I think because I'm so far from perfect, like I just figured I wasn't. But you said we spend so much time covering up our weaknesses that weakness is all we see. And I do see that I've done that. Like, I think there's a little bit of perfectionism in us all. And it's that insecurity. It's that wanting to please. It's that. So I love you're speaking my love language with all of this. Just the let it go, the, laughing it off, make a mistake. I love that advice.
Thank you. I want to just come back. I never thought I was a perfectionist either. Like, people would say, "You're such a perfectionist." And I'd be like, "But you haven't seen my closets.
Right.
I have 7 junk drawers. I forget drinks and napkins and sometimes food when I have people over.
Right.
Have you seen my house? I mean, come on." And it took me a really long time to actually admit that I have a problem with perfectionism. And it was this, right? And it was tied to this people pleasing, this trying to avoid rejection, trying to make my life rejection proof by living a life of trying to be perfect like myself.
Right.
So.
Yeah, that is so true. Thanks for listening to part 1 of this series on reframing rejection. You do not want to miss part 2 in episode 20. Jessica has a lot more great stuff to share with us, some great strategies for breaking the rejection cycle and more. And also, I want to let you know she is offering a free printable download entitled Reframing Rejection with Wisdom from Philippians. So you want to make sure you grab that. And a 3-day reframing rejection challenge. So I'm going to put links to those in the show notes, as well as links to her website, welcomegrace.com, where you can get more information on ordering her book or to sign up to receive her bi-monthly devotional called Grace Notes. I'm so thankful for those of you listening, and I'm ending today's podcast with an exciting announcement about a new resource I'm offering on my website. So listen in for more details on how you can purchase and access it. Unperfect, a good word for life here in the now and the not yet, mentioned in 1 John 3:2. When life deals us imperfections, we're often quoted Romans 8:28 that all things work together for our good, or James 1:2 that we should count it all joy when we face trials. And while these scriptures are absolutely true, they don't promise lives absent of disappointment or pain. So how do we live in that tension? Well, today I'm offering some help, hope, and healing in Embracing Unperfect, a 7-day dive to fully living the life you've been dealt. You'll receive 7 daily emails addressing obstacles that hinder our ability to live fully in the lives we've been given. Each day offers biblical insights, actionable steps, and additional resources for deeper exploration, and also a recording if you want to dive in on the go. 7 days, 7 minutes, $7. For the cost of a latte, you'll be getting more than a caffeine boost. You'll get a taste of freedom to move from resistance to acceptance, from hiding to authenticity, from comparison to contentment, from control to surrender, from regret to hope, from insignificance to purpose, and from worry to peace. So check out the link to order today, and let's dive into Embracing Unperfect together.